Members, officers, visitors and members of the public. I'm Councillor Alex Jays and I'll be chairing this evening's meeting. The meeting is being recorded and proceedings will be conducted in accordance with the Council's constitution, including procedural rules which are available on the Council's website. There's been a change in membership since we last met. The following members no longer sit on the committee: Councillor Carnell, Councillor Paul Stephen and Councillor Watson. And the new committee members are Councillor Bonney, Councillor Chapman and Councillor MacDonald. Welcome. There's no planned evacuation during this evening, and accordingly, if the alarm sounds, it's produces a genuine need to evacuate. Emergency exits to my right and down the stairs, and to my left, past the lifts down the stairs. On exiting, you'll be directed to the assembly points, and it's important that you remain there and do not return to the building until I've announced it's safe to do so. If anyone present will need assistance in evacuation, please can you indicate now so we can make the necessary arrangements to assist you. Okay. Members must consider each application and everything that is said in the meeting concerning the application and make the decision based solely on their planning judgment and on the information available to them. Following a decision by members, delegated authority is given to the planning officers to issue the decision notice. Planning permission is not granted or refused until the issuing of the decision notice. Any member of the council who is not a member of the planning committee may attend as a visiting member and may speak having given prior notification. Such visiting members may include ward members, and whilst visiting members can speak on an application, they are not permitted to vote. Any member acting as substitute on the planning committee must have undertaken appropriate training before doing so. Members must remain in the meeting for the whole time that each item is being debated and should not vote on the item unless they have done so. I'd now like to welcome our public speakers and remind you that you have 3 minutes to speak, and an audible warning of time will be given when there are 30 seconds remaining. If the meeting is deferred to conduct a site meeting, you may speak both at this meeting and at the site meeting and when it comes back to the planning committee. This meeting will follow the order set out in the agenda. Item 2, apologies for absence and substitutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies have been received from Councillor Mike Baldock, from Councillor Kieran Golding, who is substituted by Councillor Shelley Cheeseman, from Councillor Julian Speed, who is substituted by Councillor Lloyd Bowen, from Councillor Claire Martin and from Councillor Simon Clark, who is attending remotely. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 3 is to approve the minutes. Do members agree that we approve the minutes held on the 6th of March 2025, minutes number 728 to 737 as a correct record? Okay, I'll sign them in a minute. Item 4, I'd like to invite members' declarations of interest. Do we have any disclosable pecuniary interests or non-pecuniary interests? Councillor Martin.
Yep, I've already cleared with the monitoring officer. My employer is mentioned in Appendix B of the deferred item on page 50. It was a simple, they're not going to do it, so I have no link to that application. But for the purposes of transparency, I thought it worth sharing.
Thank you for that. Anyone else? No? Okay. I'd like to remind the meeting that where it's possible that a fair-minded and informed observer, having considered the facts, will conclude that there was a real possibility that a member might be predetermined or biased on any agenda item, that members should declare the possibility and then leave the room while this item is considered. Next up, we have Part B reports for the Planning Committee's decision, and we'll start off with deferred item 1, application number 244/501 929/REM, Site A, land at Preston Fields, Salters Lane, Faversham. I'd like to invite the officer for an update and summary, please.
Thank you, Chair. Evening, councillors. This application was presented at the last committee. We've got 2 updates. One is circulated before you is a letter from Faversham Community Land Trust, which has been emailed and is before you for your reading. And secondly, we've had an email from Ospringe Parish Council, which states that the clerk has conferred with their chairman. The parish council's view in the application is set out in the 2 representations they've sent in before. They've now had sight of the representations made by Faversham Town Council in November and note their objections. The development site is within the parish of Faversham Town Council and not their parish, and they are of the opinion that the Planning Committee will wish to take careful consideration of the Town Council's representations. They appreciate the complexities and current difficulties of funding social housing schemes and support the efforts to provide on this development as much affordable housing for those with local connections as possible, whilst adhering as closely as possible to the Faversham Neighbourhood Plan and the views of Faversham Town Council. This application is to amend the scheme in a number of ways. Those that were at the previous committee will remember it's to move the parking layouts in a few areas, move some of the houses away from trees, change some of the larger dwellings from 4 beds to 3 beds. And the main issue that was unresolved at the previous committee related to the affordable housing mix. The approved affordable housing mix was 90% affordable rented and 10% shared ownership. The proposal is now effectively a 50-50 split, and the Faversham Neighbourhood Plan says that the mix should be 66% affordable rent and 35% shared ownership. The request was to seek further information from other registered providers. That's been sought and is provided as an appendix to the report. There's not considered to be any other likelihood of the scheme being brought forward in with an affordable housing mix that reflects what was originally agreed. The amended mix is viable and deliverable. The Section 106 to that effect is well advanced. We've been told that occupants could occupy the dwellings from July this year if this is approved. It's therefore recommended that the application is approved. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I'm going to take the public speakers next. So we'll have Town Councillor Trevor Martin, representing Faversham Town Council, attending remotely. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. Whilst the main reason for us coming back to you is that the agent used a phrase which is said that the policy was an aspiration. It is not. It is part of your development plan, along with bearing fruits. The Faversham Neighbourhood Plan for this area is part of the development plan. The proposal is not policy compliant, but I'm sure, as others have said, we do realise that the social housing sector are up against it, as a way of putting it, and that the mix may not be possible. But bearing in mind that we know that in future other applications will come forward, possibly from the same developer, we want to emphasise that the Faversham Neighbourhood Plan is not an aspiration. The policies in it are planning policy, and they should be adhered to wherever possible. But I leave it up to members to make their own conclusions on this particular application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have the applicant, Josephine Baker, attending in person.
Chairman, members, I'm grateful for the opportunity to address you this evening. Members will recall the application was deferred for one reason: for the applicant to submit further information regarding which affordable housing providers were contacted and justification for why some were not. This information has been provided in a letter dated 24th of March and lists a total of 17 affordable housing providers and provides commentary against each. West Kent Housing Association have indicated that they can deliver the affordable housing units, but given the pressures they are under, changes are needed to the tenure and the mix. The details of this application have been discussed at length and agreed with Swales Accommodation and Resettlement Manager, who has first-hand experience of the difficulties in ensuring the delivery of affordable homes. We acknowledge the mix as a divergence from the Faversham Neighbourhood Plan affordable housing policy. However, given the practical realities of securing the delivery of affordable housing, the revised mix in this application is essential. We also acknowledge and welcome the Chancellor's allocation of £2.2 billion of funding for the affordable housing sector in the recent spring statement. However, it is important to note that that funding announced last week is an extension of an affordable housing programme and will provide funding for non-Section 106 housing delivery. It cannot be used for the purchase of Section 106 homes. It will have no impact on RP's appetite for purchasing Section 106 schemes, and it does not deal with the funding crisis that many RPs are dealing with as a result of diverting funding to deal with their existing housing stock for things like decarbonisation works, fire safety works, damp and mould improvements, and dealing with the increased costs due to inflation. Redray's partnership manager attended an affordable housing roundtable meeting today, where one local authority referenced a report which focuses on England's homeless children and the crisis in temporary accommodation. The report identifies that council spent £2.29 billion on temporary accommodation last year, with over 164,000 homeless children currently living in temporary accommodation. I urge members to focus on the fact that we are delivering affordable family housing that will help the council resolve their temporary accommodation issues, with 9 ready to be occupied as soon as July this year. It has taken Redray over 18 months to get to a position with West Kent where both parties have been able to agree in principle the affordable housing provision with the council. If the current proposal is not approved, the process of finding a new RP will have to be restarted, and the reality is affordable homes that are ready to be moved into by local families in desperate need of a permanent home will be sitting empty. We therefore urge members to vote in support of their officers' recommendations and grant planning permission. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As you'll see in front of you, we have a late tabled update from the Faversham Community Land Trust. Have all members had a chance to read this? So we don't need a reading break now? Okay then, we will continue. So I'd like to move the officer recommendation. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Braun. I'd like to open the debate. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, still not happy with the fact that the mix is, but it is what it is. There is no option on that. I think given that there is a second parcel which is in the ownership, I believe, of this particular developer on that particular site, maybe that second parcel might be used for land-led affordable housing coming forward. That would probably be the preference. Alternatively, should the situation change before that second parcel comes forward for reserve matters, maybe they would consider getting the balance adjusted using that second parcel. But at this point in time, given the number of housing associations they have contacted, given the responses they have had, I don't think we have anywhere else to go. Therefore, I would now at this point vote with the officer's recommendation, though reluctantly.
Thank you. Councillor Hunt, please.
Thanks. I was going to pretty much say the same thing as well. I mean, it's clear we've been given enough evidence here that Redrow have tried as well with all their registered providers. I think there seems to be a much bigger problem here that we can't deal with in planning committee. I think it's something that Housing and Health Committee, or whatever it's called now, is going to have a look at this. There's no good us asking for certain properties if these registered providers are not going to be wanting to do that, and I've got their own mix that they want on development. So something needs to be looked at. It's not something we can do here. I think we've got no choice but to agree this and let it go forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Winkles.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, they've come back with some minor modifications. If I read correctly, the proposal modifies the social rent offer from 19 to 25, which is not a big increase, really, and possibly up to 31. But as the previous two speakers have said, I really don't think we've really got any grounds to turn this down, unfortunately. So, possibly reluctantly, I might say I will go the officer's recommendation on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Booth.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I made the comment last time. I didn't see why this was deferred. We've achieved absolutely nothing with respect to the applicant. This should have been decided a month ago. Let's move on. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? No, in that case I'll take to the vote. All those in favour please show. Against? And abstentions. Okay, so we've voted to approve, so we've delegated that to the head of planning to grant planning permission subject to the recommendation laid out in the papers. Next up, we move on to item 2.1, and that's application number 24502-403/full, 11 Linden Close, Sittingbourne, Kent. And I'd like to ask the officer for a summary and update, please.
Thanks, Chair. Evening, everybody. Two updates for this one. Firstly, if we turn to paragraph... Sorry, I had it just then. Where's the figure gone? Sorry, it was jumping off the page a second ago. There it is, 7.33, apologies. There's a figure in there of £328.27, and that's the SAMS tariff, which goes towards mitigating impact on the Swale Special Protection Area and Ramsar site. Since the drafting of the report, the tariff has actually gone up by £9.22 to £337.49. So I suggest that members agree that if we approve it, that it's subject to that additional payment being paid before planning permission is granted to ensure that it's policy compliant in that respect. And then secondly, condition 4, which requires a 50% reduction in the dwelling emission rate, which is a fairly standard condition that we put on new build dwellings. We've this afternoon received an appeal decision which deals directly with that issue, whereby an applicant sought to remove that condition because they considered it to be unnecessary and unreasonable on the basis that we don't have a policy which requires a percentage reduction. Now, the inspector in that appeal has allowed the appeal, obviously, which means that the condition on that application gets removed, and they have also awarded costs against the council for putting that condition on the basis that it's unreasonable and unnecessary, as we don't have a policy which requires a 50% reduction. So I'm also suggesting that delegation is given to reword condition 4 to make it more generic in terms of sustainable design and construction, and so to ensure that the proposal complies with policy DM19 but doesn't include a specific percentage. So that's the two updates. In terms of the application itself, so this is 11 Linden Close in Sittingbourne, and it's proposing the demolition of existing outbuildings and the erection of a self-build 2-storey 1-bedroom dwelling. So in terms of the scheme, so Linden Close in Sittingbourne, which just runs off of Homewood Avenue. The existing site here shown outlined in red, which includes an end of terrace property, which is 11 Linden Close. There's an aerial shot there. If you can see my cursor, that's effectively the site with the existing dwellings and those outbuildings to the side where the new dwelling is proposed. I'll zoom in on some of these. But this is the existing terrace. 11 Linden Close is on the right hand side, and you can see the single storey outbuildings which are proposed to be demolished. So the proposed development there, which extends the terrace there with an additional 2-storey 1-bedroom dwelling. In terms of the block plan, now it looks like on the block plan that it's detached, but it's not. That's effectively a covered walkway that walks through to the back of the properties, but it's attached at first floor level. So the garden of the existing property gets split. So obviously to provide a garden for the existing property and one for the proposed, and then 2 parking spaces at the front for the existing and 1 for the proposed dwelling. Some photographs of the site. So that's the existing dwelling there with the blue door, and then these structures to the right hand side will be demolished to make way for the dwelling. So that's looking away from the dwelling. The existing dwelling is on the left hand side of that photo, so looking to the right there to show existing dwellings in the street scene. That just gives an idea of the separation distance. The proposed dwelling will infill effectively this gap here, and that's taken from the rear garden of the existing property. That's also taken from the rear garden of the existing property looking the other way and down the terrace, and then one looking down the garden. So as per the report, along with the updates, the recommendation is for approval. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have a public speaker, and it's the agent, Mr. Michael Tamset, please.
Good evening, Chair and members. The application is for a self-build one-bedroom dwelling to provide living accommodation for the applicant who currently lives in number 11 with his parents. This will allow the applicant to continue living within the area of his upbringing and to live independently next door to his family. The proposed dwelling will utilise and make good and effective use of the existing land to the side of number 11 Linden Close that is currently covered with outbuildings. Swale are not currently meeting their 5-year housing target, and as such, planning policies within the MPPF need to be addressed where there is a presumption in favour of development unless any adverse impacts of doing so would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. So there would be no adverse impacts to either the visual quality of the street scene or to the character of the area. The proposed dwelling shows full regard to the character, setting and context of the site in respect to the scale, height, massing and use of materials. There will be no adverse impacts on the neighbours' amenities or their living conditions. The proposed dwelling conforms to the national space standards with good outlooks and sufficient garden amenity space. The proposals provided acceptable parking facilities for both the existing occupiers of number 11 and the future occupants of the new dwelling. The planning officer has concluded within his report that the proposals are in full accordance with the local plan. The Council's planning website shows there have been no objections from either consultees or neighbours. The proposal provides an additional residential unit towards the 5-year housing supply that is within a highly sustainable town centre location and conforms to all the relevant planning policies. We therefore ask you to look on this application favourably. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd now like to move the officer recommendation. Do I have a seconder? Oh, all the choice. Councillor Winkless on this one, thank you. Who'd like to speak? Yes, Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, I think it's great that we've got our little one-bedroom social housing size dwelling. I think it's great. But can we add in a condition that it doesn't become amalgamated with the larger property later? Can we condition that it stays as an individual? Is that possible?
Yeah, that would need separate planning permission.
Right, okay.
It's covered by that.
Okay.
Councillor Winkless.
Thank you, Chair. I see there's been no objections to this by the immediate neighbours. So really, I can't see we've got any reason to turn this one down. So unless anybody else speaks tonight that might change my mind with the debate, I shall go with the officer's recommendations on it.
Okay, Councillor Hunt, please.
Thank you. Yeah, same. Got no issues with this, and recognising it is only come to us because it's somebody that works at the council. So it would have been dealt with officers because there is no objections. But just to comment on what was said at the beginning with condition 4, it is a shame, but as you say, without any policies, we've had it here a number of times at this committee trying to push this, and we really do have to get a policy sorted out if we're going to want to do it. So it is good now that we've got an appeal decision, but it does make it clear that we can't be doing it. So I support moving that. It's a shame we can't do it. But hopefully all the other ones coming forward will all be changed as well. We're not going to, I think we've had it before where we've come up and had to change it at each committee. But hopefully officers can have delegation just to change every one that comes to us. And hopefully we'll get a policy in at some point where we can do it.
Councillor Martin, please.
I think Councillor Hunt has summed it up pretty well there.
Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Chair. Just out of interest, the plan showed. I'm thinking about the walkway that's between the. This is about the walkway between the two buildings. In effect, makes it a detached. In theory, if there's it looked like there was a gap between the two that's covered up on either end, so it looks like a terrace, but actually, the extent the new property is standalone. Is that walkway in the? I couldn't see on the plan also any sort of entry or exit from that, other than into the two houses. Could that potentially become a storage area? And if so, is there a risk there in terms of health and safety and fire risk?
Yeah, so it's this, can you see that? Can you see where my cursor is? Yeah, it's that area, which I mean, I think is quite typical of lots of terraces, where you get a small walkway through to get to the rear. In terms of health and safety and fire, I mean, that would be sort of outside of the planning process in terms of those considerations. But it's it's a sort of rear access, which I think is quite typical of properties like this, which, otherwise are joined, and therefore it's difficult to get through to the back without going through the house. So I think it's useful in terms of keeping bins at the back and things like that, which has a positive impact on visual amenity as well. So
there is a way in front.
Okay. Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Thank you.
Councillor Simon Clark online.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I am the ward member along with Councillor Cheeseman for this ward. As I say, we've had no objections, no neighbours or anything have come through to either myself, and I don't think Councillor Cheeseman either. I think what's termed where it's detached at the bottom and joined at the top is what they call a linked detached. And as has been said previously, they are quite common throughout the borough. So yeah, I would urge members to go with the officer's recommendation and approve this forthwith. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. So members, I take it we're all happy to accept the change in Sam's payment? And we're happy to vary condition 4, we'll delegate that to the officer to reword. Is everyone happy with that? Ecstatic, okay. Right, in that case, I'll move this one to the vote. All those in favour, please show. Thank you, that's unanimous. So we move on. Permission is not granted, and we've delegated it to the head of planning to grant planning permission, subject to changing the conditions. So next up, we have item 2.2, which is 45 Lady Winter Drive, Minster on Sea, application number 25/5/00098/full. And I'd like to invite the officer for a summary and update, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. There's no update for this one. I'm just bringing up the presentation. Thanks. So, 45 Lady Winter Drive in Minster. This is an application for a garage conversion into a habitable space, including changes to the fenestration. So I'll do a quick run through. So application site outlined in red here. So as you can see, it's on a housing estate surrounded by houses. Has parking and soft landscaping to the front and private amenity space to the rear. So these are the existing and proposed floor plans. I'll just zoom right in. It's just this front part of the dwelling which we're concerned with, which is listed as storage and utility, but it's effectively what was the original garage area, and proposed to change this front bit to an office. Parking arrangements at the front remain as they currently are, with 2 spaces on the driveway. And in terms of the elevations, again, the only thing that changes here is, so the front, as you can see, the garage door, and that changes to a window, the style of which matches the existing property. Some photographs. So, property there with two cars comfortably parked on the driveway, and that's just a further photograph of the street scene. So yeah, the recommendation is for approval as per the report. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd now like to move the officer's recommendation. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Booth, thank you. Open the debate. Councillor Booth.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, as ward member, again, as per the previous application, the only reason we see this tonight is because it's an employee of the Borough Council. As far as the application is concerned, it's no different to tens of thousands of applications that do this annually, making best use of more living space. I've got no problem with it. Urge members to approve. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Thompson.
Only just a little note for whoever the member of staff is, that even though we haven't got a policy, it would be good if they take on board and act morally to increase their level of insulation above and beyond what currently is standard. Would be quite nice.
Thank you very much. I'll now move this one to the vote. All those in favour, please show. Another unanimous. Thank you, members. We now move on to Part 5 applications. Please be advised the appeal decision for 5.3 on the printed agendas was incorrect, and you should have a tabled copy in front of you. This was updated online, and members have received an email with the correct decision. Noting that, does anyone have any comments on any decisions? No? Okay, I believe they're all officer decisions and they all went our way. So, if there's nothing further, I will close the meeting at 19:32. Thank you, members.